All right, special LOLz today. We got a guest who is going to serve as our liaison, our correspondent into the world of sports betting drama. Brian and I, we got our hands full. We're trying to cover all this stuff. We got RTA controversies, all of this. We're missing some of the stuff going on in the crazy world of sports betting Twitter. And so we got Geoff Feinberg here to walk us through what's going on. I'm Pete with Brick. This is LOLz. Let's do it.
Does he think? I think he thinks this. He thinks this is a go. Vegas Dave thinks this is a go.
Hot naked girls doing yoga.
What?
Why don't you just win like a man?
Random.org. Type in 1 for yes, 2 for no. And let the DFS cats pick for you.
And I'm absolutely begging you not to dupe us. Please don't dupe us.
All right, welcome to the show, Geoff. I think we did an After Dark, right? So you've been on that, but have you ever been on LOLz before?
I'm not sure. I don't think so, but big fan. Feels the same.
Yes. Is it new? You started doing another podcast. Obviously, you do a lot of stuff with Mayo over on his channel, but now you are doing kind of like a sports betting podcast. What is that one again?
Yeah, it's called Circle Back on the Circles Off YouTube channel. Pete, I feel like even I've spoken to you before about it, whether it was After Dark or even in like personal correspondence, that I joked with Mayo for years, if people wanted to get into this industry, that there's no more room for ranking tight ends, but there was a need in the marketplace for people to sort of like recap some of the craziness that goes on Twitter, because, unfortunately, it's not a proud thing to say, if you're perpetually online, it's not a thing you're proud to admit when you go to a dinner party or something, or you're hanging out with your friends. But, hard to believe I live a life off of the internet, and I have lifelong friends, and they have real jobs, office jobs, appointments, they're team leaders, they're responsible, and they have no idea about this stuff. And I can't talk to them about it. It'd be I can't talk to my wife about Emiliano Grillo. It's the same reason why there's a golf show. So, I thought, there's a need in the marketplace for people who wanted to talk about this stuff, but really you can't talk about it in your normal life. And the show has done well. It has been controversial. It has gotten, I think, 6 cease and assist.
Seriously?
Yeah, letters. They come,
wow.
Some of them seem like people just write them on their own, and others have felt like they're more real and taken more seriously. So we have found our way, but at this moment, I sort of regret it, because it's fun here, and as you guys know, I started with Pat Mayo, and I used to be on produce Sirius Radio and gambling content over there. So I had a foot in sports gambling, and have always been more involved and on the internet per se in the Twitter era. But the amount of the orbit, the world of sports betting and the offshoots of it, you guys are obviously in best ball world and DFS world, but there are so many planets out there, and it is crazy upon crazy. And I feel I'm not a Star Wars guy. I don't know the right analogy. I don't even know the character's name, but Guardians of the Galaxy, I'm flying through this thing. I might be one of the whack packers, but you're just meeting people that are even so much more crazier than you, and you're landing on new planets that you didn't even know existed in this, I'll just say it, gambling, sports gambling, touted ecosystem that truly has been an offspring of all of it. So yeah, I'm tired now.
Yeah. You sound exhausted from keeping up on this. I mean, yeah, because Brian and I, for a while, we felt I think we could kind of cover the DFS / sports betting drama.
And I love that when there was the, Ship It Nation versus Rampure, that, inject that shit into my veins. That was sort of me going to, my friends with content operations being see, I think this works. I crave that shit. I don't know. Maybe that says something about me, but, and the thing about is in your orbit here, Peter and Brian, like those things sort of come around like very, not so often. This almost feels like a TMZ situation where you think like celebrities would stop doing stupid things because there's always a camera, but no, there's always something new in this galaxy. So it does and I guess if you're caught up in something, you hope, the wind will turn it over. But there's always just something else that is happening. It is wild. I was not, as much as I know there's a need in the marketplace, and I'm not even saying I have filled that need or the show that I'm on has filled that need. They even felt the need to create a second show in the week with a whole other cast because the amount of storylines kept happening. And it felt like too long of a gap. So we got 2 shows hosted by 2 different people. But in this world, it's nonstop. In the DFS controversy, you guys were amazing at it, and it was proof that at least in my mind, I craved it for a while there. That there's an appetite for this stuff. I don't think I was the only one.
The analogy he used, Pete, which was that basically you don't have anyone to talk to. That's why these shows exist. Is really good. I've never thought about it that way. It's totally true. I do have a theory as to why in those worlds there's more of it than in best ball / DFS. And I think it's I think part of it is just sports betting has been more of those personalities that will bark at each other way more. They're just more guys like that in that world. But I do think especially poker is more personal. Like I beat you, you beat me. If there's a controversy, it's very personal and very close. Where DFS and basketball, you're in a field of 500,000 opponents in basketball. You know what I mean? My team does not affect Pete really in any way, that can really upset him in a personal way. And DFS is the same, but there is some there is 3-man DFS where you could play smaller field where it's much more personal. And that is actually had some drama in DFS, the 3-mans. So I think poker and sports betting are just more suited for personalities to battle.
Well, there's that. I agree fundamentally, but I would say, would you say, Geoff, what is really fanning the flames of this on sports betting is the existence of these spaces by Elf, and you might have to catch me up. I don't know if there's an alternative space now where this is all happening, but that basically provided an online arena for these beefs to start, to foster, to continue. And it feels like a lot of stuff has spilled over almost specifically from these spaces starting up. Is that a fair characterization?
Yeah, and of course, there have been rival spaces, and then, people feel very territorial about their spaces, and then when someone from a rival spaces gets caught up in a controversy, it is the perfect recipe for the rival spaces. These beefs, I guess, the characters are wild. I almost wanted to write it down because a lot of these people are anonymous. Right? You have a Bluebeard, a Blackbeard, a Storm, not a guy that just goes by 44, Man of the Vig. There are a lot of anonymous actors, which also add to, there's a veil, which always leads to a level of suspicion and who are these people? And I swear to you guys, I don't even, if because I was hesitant to come on because this stuff changes so fast. And some of this recent poker stuff that some of these guys are involved to has gotten quite nasty, and anyone speaking on it in some ways is getting attacked. So I was even nervous, not being totally up to date on the current situation. But I was listening to a Spaces last night where, DFS, top shelf, hero Drew Dinkmeyer was accused of being an alias, being the real life person of one of these people. And that was quickly shot down. Respected people were no, that is not Dink. I can just confirm to you, this is not Dink. So this is, this is getting crazy. But part of the madness is there's a lot of, like I said, people whose identities are still a total unknown and they go by these aliases.
That's sports betting too, because sports bettors have a big incentive to be anonymous so that they don't get limited as easily if they're winning players anyways. Where in DFS it's the opposite. Like being known can like be beneficial in ways.
What's the comparable for sports betting? Because like in poker and in DFS, there's almost like more of a public ledger, right? Like you win tournaments, you're up this much in these, televised or streamed cash games. In DFS, there's leaderboards, there's posting screenshots of your big wins. Like in sports betting, it's like, where is all this machismo coming from, right? Because at the end of the day, it comes from like, I'm better than you, or I think you're a fraud, or I think you're a hack at this. Like, where are the receipts in sports betting that someone is successful? Like, how is this actually being tallied and scored?
It's almost an impossible game because if you can show proof of a big bet, you suck because you shouldn't be allowed to bet that much.
Right.
Right? Like it's this whole, but then you say, no, I've got these, and everyone, they've got, and some of the best bettors, I'm sure, I know they have almost like a network of beard accounts or, primed accounts from losing bettors. But yeah, like if you can bet a lot, you're like, cause you're booked or you're banned, right? Like that's the model with the, your broker banned, right? So anyone that can actually keep betting on the sports books has such a layer of suspicion because you should be banned by now. I've been banned. I bet less than you. I win less than you say you win. None of this makes any sense. So just by being able to bet those stakes means you are a fish. And the receipts are hard. People want to see P&Ls. No one shows P&Ls. A lot of stiffing on bets and guys disappearing when shit hits the fan. Totally different than DFS. I mean, obviously the beefs are sort of settled in the contests, but DFS in its own way has like its our own orbits because I'm obviously very familiar with the golf parts of it. And for the most part, it is like very cordial and respectful. You don't see really many beefs. Maybe in a past Twitter life, I would get into something, but I really think I've improved or don't really engage like that anymore, especially in golf, DFS, or betting. But like go over to MMA, DFS, and betting, and these are like the most vile. It's like a totally different than how I see people interacting with each other who bet or have DFS sites as it pertains to those sports. So yeah, I don't know. I've said a lot, but there's a lot going on.
The sports betting, like you can't win. Kind of like like you kind of said, either you're broke or you're banned, so you can't really win. It applies for the content creators too, because if you could beat it, why would you create the content and show it? And also, if you do create content that's good, you're ruining it for everyone, right? Because now the sports books can use that because that's public information. Or if your picks are good, you might get players banned fast. There's no way to, or like even for the professional bettors, like if you're a top-down bettor, well, you're benefiting off of someone else who's a bottom-up bettor who's creating these lines and moving them, and you're just good at noticing it before the lines move somewhere else. There's like no way to win in that world.
And the people, at least, like I could be fooled, but the people who like are at least considered the better or the best sports bettors, like they don't show their tickets. Obviously, they don't want to be backtracked in any which way to even their burners or their beards. And yeah, if you are able to beat the markets on like NFL, NBA, there's so much money to be made there that there's no way you should be sharing that information, which is why, a lot of people say don't buy any picks. And then it's this whole thing of like, well, the guy selling the picks might be a winning bettor, but by the time you get the email and it's sent out, the lines move 15 cents, and that's not the same bet. So you're all like, just don't, none of the touts are winners. There's a whole discourse going on there. I would believe if you're selling picks, you're probably, That's tough because there are a couple places I do think win.
Yeah.
But like for the most part, I think most people agree, like sane, rational people agree, pick sellers are losing bettors.
The vast majority, yeah.
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 Can you?
I think the prop guys in the DFS space, I think most of those are probably winning. Just those props. I mean, you will get banned pretty quick though, like if you just hammer those and those alone. But for the sides and totals and stuff like that, it's few and far between.
Can you? We mentioned the spaces thing. Can you give us kind of the backstory or just what you know about this guy Elf? As I understand it, a kid, Boston, made some noise, arbitrage betting, name for himself, and then started hosting these spaces, became kind of a personality, and now there's been like multiple story arcs to this, and now it feels like we might be on like the downfall of his arc. Can you catch people up to space on who Elf is and why he's been relevant in the sports betting community?
Yeah, so I'd say I really became aware of Elf during the NFL playoffs. I'd say that's when it got pretty much on my radar. But he had been hosting these spaces. You nailed it. A younger guy, mid-20s, crushing it in arbitrage, probably still living with his parents, making a lot of money. Like life is good. I guess like like he acknowledges he's a bit of like a robot, not the most like social guy, like awkward, right? So he puts that out there. But the spaces were getting fun. It felt like, just like late night radio show. I'd listen walking my dogs at night. I'd spend a couple more longer out there, end up maybe even smoking an extra joint. I wasn't just enjoying what was happening. And you'd hear like scammers yelling at scammers, people telling other people that they make like the dub club look bad. Just like this whole world of people, like an introduction to it was almost like a place where all of these planets that I spoke of earlier coming together in the tavern and yelling at each other. You suck. No, you suck. You're a scammer. I'm a winning bettor. You're not a winning bettor. Show proof. And that turns into, a lot of machismo of bets or contests. But for the most part, it started up pretty fun. People would call out scammers, give them a hard time. And then, naturally, then he got the boxing bug. Because there was a Sean Perry-Mazzy fight that I'm sure you guys broke down, and Elf saw what that did for his content. And that, I'm sure, he was getting some sponsorships for that. And he went all into the boxing, and he went all into the crazy side. And I say that because, on the other side, I'm not talking about me. I am like a wagertainment guy, as Nick Costas coined that great phrase. But, there were a lot of these very good, sharp bettors who were, liking Elf and enjoying Elf and contributing to Elf. And mentoring would be way too much of a stretch, but I'm lacking for a better word. And then on the other side, there was the Sean Perry, world. And it was Elf, make a choice. It's like Spanky and Rob Pizzola or Man of the Library. I know another name, Green Beans and Elf and Sean Perry. So he, many people think, myself included, that he chose darkness in that. But, and then he promised more fights and he got sponsorships and, we promised Bet Online 2 fights that never happened. So I think they were pissed at him and he lost a lot of his sponsorships. And I think he's probably getting 10% of what he was getting 2 months ago for hosting those spaces. But, then it just became a total just shit show to the point where, old DFS friend, well, maybe enemy to a lot of people, I was always entertained by him. Tommy G entered the scene and became a main player in these spaces, aligning himself with Elf, hooking up in an Airbnb with Elf. I don't mean hooking up. I mean hanging out. There were people hooking up. It wasn't them, but just good times being, hanging out with younger guys, having a lot of fun in Vegas. I'm sure showing them a good time. And it got to the point where Tommy G, and I say this like enjoying Tommy, liking his entertainment to a certain extent, but a fan, like if I had to pick yes or no on Tommy, I'd click yes. He felt like the most rational, sane person in the operation.
Which that's saying a lot.
Yeah, like, you know, he was the guy that just seemed to have like the most clarity, moral clarity of everyone involved in the craziness. And yeah, to anyone who knows Tommy, like that's how crazy these streets had gotten. And I'd mentioned rival spaces and just the conjecture that goes on in these spaces. Like people throw out it got to the point where people throw out the wildest accusations just to like engage the audience and keep the spaces going and all this stuff. So I don't even remember the question, Peter, Brian. I'm sorry.
I wanted
where it starts, but it was the elf. It was the elf arc. And maybe there is an elf redemption story. He's a young guy. He got a lot of money, you know, like 24 years old, going to Vegas. You know, decisions.
That's what it was just catching people up on Elf. And I thought it was like it was like a career arc for someone just like hyper condensed within like a 3-month span, what he went on. And it also made me think, and I'm curious your thoughts on this now that you're making content in this vein a little bit as well, of how you really have to toe the line of like, yeah, you gotta poke the bear, you gotta stoke the flames, get people kind of talking about stuff. But if you swing too far in the other direction, like you get too far in bed with the actual scammers, or your content just becomes like so lowest common denominator, you start to lose the other half, which, like you said, there were a lot of big prominent figures from sports betting Twitter who were tuning in and enjoying this content, but it seemed like it got so trashy and low level and nonsensical that he lost like a huge portion of the audience.
So 100%. And as you know, those spaces, they can grow organically, and credit to Elf. Like they grew organically and naturally and fast. And how do they grow? Well, it's just like you said, a lot of people, even like Geoff Nadeau, a character, Barstool character, even like Big Cat ended up in one of them in the early goings on. And when you go on a space, your followers see that you're in a space, right? So bigger people or anyone with any sort of platform, and if you're running a space, you appreciate people listening from their real accounts and not their burner accounts, because that's how you get, you know, more people noticing that people they like are in them, yada, yada, yada. But yes, this is, I guess, a conversation maybe in social media or in sports gambling lore history class in decades from now. Elf had, like I said, a very clear, natural, organic growth that he should be given credit for, that I think a lot of people were, and he just like did not want to slow ride that and grow a little smaller. He wanted to like go take a rocket ship quickly, and he saw, like I mentioned, the like 20x bump he got when like people were boxing and like threatening each other with actual fights. And then a fight that gets, you know, well, maybe it was a fake, and going back on it the whole time, certainly we know the other ones were staged, but that first one, for it to be cut, for people to threaten each other at like midnight and then be in a boxing ring the next day, like that felt like that was the goods. I think Hater, you know, that you could see how that worked. Elf decided he didn't want like the natural organic growth anymore. He, you know, wanted the dopamine hit harder, and that led to this path. But like you said, a young guy, I don't know. I think he knows he screwed up. I think he knows that he lost some of the sponsors. He knows like putting his reputation in some of those people's hands was definitely an epic miscalculation. But he's still here, and, you know, the redemption arc is always right in front, like in the gambling Twitter spaces.
He can bounce back. Brian, what did anything delight or confuse you from a distance of the sports betting drama going on there?
Yeah, well, it's the problem is the names. You know, there's so many different names you have to keep track of. It's kind of hard. So like this latest Tommy G, and so of course the Tommy G stuff peaked our ear, since it's, you know, DFS's own Tommy G. This was after Elf's downfall, if I get the timeline right. This is pretty recent. He was in this latest cheating scandal, poker cheating scandal, which I listened to the Circles Off pod, and to me it sounded like pretty much a nothing burger. I know they like keep dragging. You know what it sounded like? It's really like it's turned into like podcast versus podcast, or like influencer versus influencer battle, more than these guys were actually cheating. And like cheating in poker, like there's a lot of nuance there. Not that any of it's right, but like there's I've talked about it on the show a bunch of people. Like back in the day, I know guys were slow playing against me at the very least, and there was no RTAs back then. But like you can go all the way up to an RTA, right? An automatic RTA level of cheating. And so, who knows if you, I mean, how in this day and age can you prove if me and Geoff are, telling each other through G-chat what we have against you in a 3-man? It's like, you'll never find out, but that's definitely cheating. So to me, it sounded like more like a nothing burger turned into an influencer battle. And I love one of the lines I have to say from your show was so funny. I told Pete, like 10 minutes in, it's like the Tommy G showed up in the space, and his biggest complaint was that not that there was cheating or anything like this. It was that the guys were stopped playing at 5 a.m. And that's the worst thing. He would stop playing at 5 a.m. That's what he was upset about.
I mean, there's so much to jump into with this poker thing.
Yeah, give us a little high-level synopsis too, because people are confused about what happened here.
So sorry, say that again.
Oh, so people, can you just give like a quick TLDR on what the poker cheating scandal is? Because people are confused.
Through these spaces, imagine after hearing how crazy these spaces are, from those poker games sprung from them for a couple weeks, right? Like, and now we have a controversy, people thinking shadiness, which is, like a shadiness happening in a shady spaces poker game. No one should be shocked. But essentially what happened is, one of the guys who was running the game, like you said, Tommy said 5 a.m. It got late. He wanted to bow out. He handed controls of who can play and who couldn't to Tommy. A lot of people put the money in an escrow, like, they're buying in for thousands of dollars. A lot of these people don't actually know each other, and there's aliases, so escrows are involved. And apparently, through the night, or just through, Tommy self-admitted, like he's on 2 8-balls, like playing poker, and he's the whale at the table. So someone got in there and lost, and then re-upped, and then owed $9,000 and never paid. And that was the start of like controversy. And then people were yelling at each other, blaming people, like who vouched for this guy, that guy vouched for this person, and then the person who originally set the game and gave the credit to Tommy, people were all mad at. Geez, I'm like losing myself here for a moment. I got to grab my own bearings. And then there was, so people were yelling at each other as who was responsible for this. And someone didn't like the accusations and wanted to prove someone was a piece of shit in the game. This, I haven't given the names right, so now if I feel like I go backwards, I'm screwing up, Peter. Can you put me
don't
back
get
on
us
the
a cease
track?
and desist letter. Keep that,
Yeah, no, I haven't done anything yet. But the person who started the game and handed controls over to Tommy, his name is Adam NHL Better.
Yeah,
I just need to say that because it comes up again, and I forgot to say that. Nonetheless, after everyone's trying to get to the bottom of this $9,000 and people are blaming people, right? And this Adam is attacking this guy whose name is Bluebeard. And then Bluebeard pulls out of his nest a screen grab of a text of Adam asking him to cheat. Do you want to cheat? Bluebeard says no with like, I think a thumbs down emoji or no, like not. Do I have that right, Brian?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So that creates a whole other controversy. Where was this cheating? Was this cheating? How long has cheating been going on? And Bluebeard notified some of the other bigger players in the game about this text long before it became public. So people feel everyone should have known about it. It just turned into this whole shit show. The thing is, the guy who asked to cheat doesn't actually play, which is the most confusing. He was not playing in these big games, and all he played was in the low stakes games on a previous date.
Gotcha.
Now, all of this weirdness has allowed everyone to just ask questions. And Tommy G lost a lot of money, and he, is looking for answers and a bit of attention in the process. And there's just a lot of unknowns and a lot of accusations, but it's not looking good. Like, it's just, I'm now lost. Sorry. This is what I was afraid of, why I was nervous to join the show. Cause, some of these people, it's like really high stakes. I don't mean the money, but people are injecting themselves into it who weren't really involved, but they want to defend other parties, and it's really blowing back on them, which isn't ideal. And I'll say this, from a circle back perspective, I'm going to throw stones at my own house, because a lot of the time, all the time, if we like a story and there's enough red meat, we will gossip about it. We are not waiting for all of the facts.
Right.
When it's time to record and something like fun or funny is happening, we're not waiting for all of the facts. We're sharing our opinions. So now, some of the people on the show who are implicated in this, it only took, I guess, a matter of time for it to come back at us, are implicated in this, want to wait for all of the facts. And that's fair, to some people, I guess that's not acceptable. Tommy G at this point has no interest in finding out all of the facts. They're riding with it. And Brian said it off the top. There is this Adam NHL Better he hosts a rival space. So this is just like the Elf show, Elf hates this guy. So this is his chance to bury this guy who is making gains on his turf. Right. And anyone coming into Elf space to sort of give the other side of the story is getting, they're not even being allowed to speak. They're getting just shouted out of the room. It's become quite a thing. And again, a lot of the people, unfortunately, that are being accused of cheating are also anonymous characters, which adds to who are you? Which is somewhat fair. Tommy now is asking, okay, I lost 30, 40 grand to you. There might have been cheating. Who are you? Now, Pete, I guess I should close by saying the reason a lot of this, do you want to cheat text from a guy who wasn't even in the game, why people kept that under wraps is pretty clear. They did not want that game to have any gravy train that was a coked out Tommy G coming back to play again tomorrow to 5 a.m. was what they wanted. I don't know that it was to execute more cheating, but this Bluebeard guy loses. He had no incentive to release that text. If he was running a successful cheating operation with this Adam character, he would not blow it up. There was so much more money there. Some of these guys are saying they could have taken even more money from Tommy. And the problem is, I know I said a lot, but the person who won the most is Chris Flupp. He's on the other edition of Circle Back that I am not on. He saw the screenshot of the "Do you want to cheat?" and he should have said something to the other people. But again, he did not want to end the game. And he's friends with this Bluebird character. This Bluebird character, I think, is a mover for him. Flupp is a big sports bettor, serious, high stakes that I can't even comprehend, and what it takes to move that kind of action. And his whole thing was, this Bluebird is reputable because he could steal $100K from me any day. Any day over the last few years, this guy could have been nibbling away at $100K of mine and never took anything. So I thought his thing is, I just thought that text was a nothing burger. I'm sorry if I just...
No, you were crushing it here. The chat loves the TLDR. I did want to interject and ask Brian a question, and I want you to Tommy G loses a lot of money in a poker game. What does Occam's razor tell us? Would it be he was cheated? He had a couple of 8 balls in him, or he's just really bad at poker? What do you think Occam's razor is there?
I'm going to have to go with probably not the greatest poker player out there. So, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, because they're, Tommy G, like, they point to some hand history, right? And this Flup character, like, he seems genuine. Like, he is dying to get to the bottom of it. But he needs other people's information. Brian can speak to that, to get the whole cards and the hand histories. But of like 1,400 hands, a couple guys never went to showdown. And that is like the most indicting thing. And there's a pre-flop fold of pocket jacks that people have uncovered, Peter. And it goes, either that is for surely cheating. You would think, I'm sure there's other, nuance to the hand, but the people who are defending themselves are saying, no, I wasn't cheating. There was a raise on that hand, and I was only playing in the hands for which I could take advantage of Tommy. If the other sober players were raising in hands, I was okay folding pocket jacks because I wasn't here to do that. I wasn't here to play cards. I was there to literally dummy Tommy when I had an edge because he was calling apparently with 10 high. So it is this like, and every theoretical thing that could have happened is being talked about in these spaces with like, and there's so many theoretical angles to, what you could have plausibly happened, and they're all being discussed. And yeah, at this point, it just seems like a lot of like influencer battle more than a poker scandal. I think that was well put, Brian. I hadn't heard that yet.
I mean, because I'm on the outside and I'm just looking at the tweets.
And you're the poker guy.
Too much online. Pete, do you remember when we talked about the spaces with Spanky on Elf show? And I was saying, like, it sounds like this guy doesn't know the difference between civil and criminal law. Yeah. And he just has no idea there's a difference between these two. And Spanky keeps correcting him, and he's just not getting it. That guy is also involved in this. I think his name's Nadu or something like that.
Oh yeah, Nadu. Yeah. Nadu is involved, and they're recording. I'll just plug it. They're recording the Friday episode of Circle Back Today, where like I'll just say like behind the scenes, people had to be told like please, like, because they're on opposite sides of this issue. Nadu and Chris Flupp, who will be on this episode, and they were just asked to like have the debate, but please have it like respectfully, because I guess the people who are in charge are like worried about how that debate is going to go, which will drop tomorrow morning. For more context on this,
I don't see it going respectfully. But
yeah. Maybe. So, and Nadu's a lightning rod. I'm a big Nadu fan. Like I hashtag Nadu crew. He entertains me.
Yeah. You don't need to know the difference between civil and criminal to make a good podcast. That's for sure.
And that's when things have elevated beyond like a niche. Like obviously a lot of fantasy stuff, best ball, DFS all stays within this niche. The sports betting, once you have like the Barstool guys weighing in, then to do, and there's that guy Jack Mack who does like stuff for them, and I know he's been like commenting on it. It's like once it starts to get there's some real velocity to the drama that's occurring.
That's a great point. And Jack Mack wishes he could be in more, but some of the Barstool and their betting contracts, he's discouraged from being a part of it. But yeah, we're hitting. It's like hitting more orbits, like this shooting star. I don't want to call it a shooting star because that's a compliment, but this like disgusting comet flying through the gambling sky, and like us perennial online degenerates are just grabbing a hold, and people like everyone is an expert on this. Like everyone thinks they're a poker expert. I am not. Like I don't moonlight as one ever. I'll be honest. If I entered a poker game, I'm closer to like the Tommy G side of how it's going to go for me than the other guys. Other than some poker in college, like I know I'm the fish, so I'm smart enough to not jump in the pools. So I've tried to like really, it's unavoidable though at this point, and I am getting dragged by association because some of the people that I am friends with have put their neck out for this one. Mainly Rob Pizzola.
Yeah.
Right. He has really injected himself into this. I'm a big fan of Rob. I'll be seeing Rob tomorrow night with Pat Mayo in town here in Toronto. That'll be fun.
Yeah, your live show.
Yeah, we got a live show this weekend. Like, that's the thing. This, like, I've got 33,000 followers on Twitter. They're not from that. Like, they are just like golf dads with Titleist hats and khakis. Like, that's really who follows me on Twitter. That is like where I really land, but I've been doing this other stuff. But yeah, that live show this weekend, I'll see Rob, hopefully a couple drinks. Hopefully he's gone offline, played some golf. I don't know, but he's fully interjected himself into this, and he wasn't even involved. So that would be like, Rob, man, like, why? Like, I get, like, your friends are getting attacked, but they're big boys and they got a lot of money and they can, I think, defend themselves. But hey, once you get into it, like, once,
Yeah.
you know how it is, we're like fever type and tweet, even, you know, to joke that Pablo Torre, Bill Simmons thing from this past week, and Pablo Torre having to admit, like, he's at the Peabody Awards being honored for the highest levels of journalism, and he's sitting there, like, not paying attention to anything, just his thumbs going wild, like, tweeting back at Bill Simmons, telling him he's not a journalist while he's sitting at the Peabody's getting honored. And he's like, I cannot believe I allowed myself to, like, leave the moment I was in to enter the internet, and this is just so much dumber and worse. We all know that.
And you know what? I remember this is obviously all accelerated in the past couple of months. There used to be a more simple time on sports betting Twitter, as Memphis Pissboy points out, where it was just admiring walking bets. And there used to be no drama. It's just you'd watch your walking bets clip of the day, you'd really enjoy yourself, and you'd move on.
Yeah.
Can we harken back to those good old days, Geoff?
Honestly, simpler times.
Fire off a parlay, you know.
Yeah,
no
just simpler times.
You know, I think
What did she do? Because I thought she started.
I think she might have just had a baby, or she could be 9 months. Like, she's on epidural maybe at the moment, or just got a newborn. No, I don't. I mean, like, she could literally be at the hospital. I assume it's been a long time. So I assume she's. And congratulations to Taylor, you know, on upcoming motherhood, or if it's already been born. I haven't been privy. I've encouraged the Circle's back operation that we should send a baby gift, though, when we know that there's a baby, because she gave a lot of weeks of content. But yes, elite throwback, and who knew, like, from walking bets to here, it was simpler. It was simpler in the NFL playoffs.
No, you made a point earlier that I wanted to touch on. We kind of moved past, was this kind of idea we've touched on here in the show a bunch, is like, how do you know, like, it's like a normal guy, how do you know who's like a person you should follow on Twitter, who should you take info from, who has credibility? All these things are really, really hard for somebody who's not knee deep in all this stuff to figure out. And so in this kind of like post-truth AI generated image world we're moving into, I feel like for content creators and everything, your reputation and like integrity is pretty much all you have at this point. And so, like, going forward in these kind of episodes, well, I mean, unless I guess you're just going for pure like clicks and interactions and stuff, and who knows, I feel like people's reputation, defending and protecting their own reputation, is just going to go up in value so quickly here in the next year or two. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And unfortunately for the guys who are like the big movers or the big, like, true pro sports bettors, it's their reputations that matter most, right? Because like, they rely on so many people, or like the amount of trust or faith that you know, those guys that actually make those pro sports bets, you know, whether it be the movers or people to work with, I guess, or to trust you. So that's why, you know, this Chris Flopp is like trying to do anything he can, begging Tommy for his hand history. And Tommy is essentially only saying you can't have his, but he wants everyone else's table logins to see theirs. Like, not just provide, he wants their logins and shit. So he's making crazy demands to people, as people are maybe attempting to get to the bottom of it. That being said, Flups on circle back also, like, we don't often wait for things to, not saying like the facts don't matter, and like when we get to the bottom of it, it would be worth addressing. But I've got to say, like, we don't usually wait for things to like hash out. We go with what we got when it's time to record a show. But yeah, reputation matters. And who even knows if followers matter anymore? That's the saddest thing, Brian, because for people like us on like our, I'd say, tier of followers, with the way the new Twitter algo works, and like sometimes you feel like your tweets aren't getting through, or maybe they just suck and no one likes them. Yeah. But if but if we can't even reach the people who have chosen to follow us, like we're screwed. We're screwed, because it's not easy, but like there are times it feels like I'm not even reaching the people who are following me, who have chosen to hit follow and be a fan, because Twitter has prioritized other things to put you into their people's feeds, even if they follow you, is very concerning.
Agreed. Yeah, we've talked about speed. Like he has to have AI reading your tweet, because if it like thinks like, oh, this might be referencing outside of Twitter content, we're gonna bury it. It feels like there's definitely that going on. And sometimes your tweet will get 800 views or something, like tiny, and sometimes it doesn't. It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, Pete.
No, and it's funny. I remember, because I basically just use X to promote stuff. I don't really shit post too much anymore. But the 1 week a year that I do is when I do the Cash Game King bit in week 18 at the end of the year, and I just tweet nonstop. And I got people replying to me, and they're like, I haven't seen one of your tweets in a year. Like, someone said, I thought you deleted your Twitter account. And it was like, that was like one of those light bulb moments. Like, if you're not feeding their beast and just constantly giving them content, they're just not going to show you to a bigger, audience. And I think that's like a lot of algorithms. I know TikTok's like that too, where it's like, you just have to volume post, volume. Otherwise you're just going to be buried.
That just makes your credibility even more important, because then let's say you make, you make a mistake in the eyes of other people, and then they never see your post again. So all they're going to have from you is like, oh, I remember you. You're the guy who was involved in that poker scandal or something.
Yeah. It's wild. So what's the next big thing percolating, Geoff? Like, is there an end game to this? Because if you actually break it down, right, like fans or people on Twitter who are just consuming this content, everyone likes drama. They want to get their popcorn out. For a content creator, they're trying to toe the line, like in the Elf thing of like, can I make money from this? Can I grow my audience? Like, what are the people in the sports betting community? Like Rob Pizzol, like he's not benefiting from getting embroiled in a poker scandal. So like, what are people actually trying to accomplish with this?
That is a great question. I assure you there is no benefit. And you made a good point about trying to toe the line, and you brought it up with Elf. Like, he lost his audience by kind of going too far, but he could have played both sides of it. You have some one on you break down some stuff that's more serious, you make fun of some scammers, and then you can't not have like the whack pack. Like, you can't not have that as part of you dive into some of the crazy, but he went too far and he lost the audience. As for what's next, I guess the other big story in sports gambling that kind of just broke this morning or yesterday was that Adam Chernoff is leaving Right Angle Sports.
Oh,
and
really?
Some questions around that. That would normally be like a much bigger story in the orbit, but I guess it seems like, this poker thing is still holding on. I don't know. I don't think that's what you meant. What's next? Like, what's the next story? I don't know. I don't know where this goes next. I think spaces are like they can be fun. If anything, it feels like it's like a form of radio. And if there are rival spaces, sometimes I don't mind it. Like you just change the channel, I go over to this other space. That space is boring me, but at the moment it's a lot of crazy. It's a lot of crazy, but sometimes it's fun. But I'm in too deep, and like I feel like I got bags under my eyes. I want to take a nap. I like some regrettable decisions, I think. Even on me just getting into this orbit.
You're like it's like when you watch a TV show, right? And you love the first season and you're like hooked, and then they start getting progressively worse, but you're so pot committed and you've invested so much time that you can't like sit it out. You're like, I'm a completionist. I have to watch that show. That's what it sounds like with like the gambling drama. It's like it was really good. And now it's like the next episodes that come out just keep getting subsequently worse, but you're like, I'm in too deep, man. I got to see the new season.
That's an incredible point. And you're jealous of your friends that like got out after season 3.
Yeah.
And it's like season 8 now, and you're still holding on, and it is just so not what you wanted, but you're in.
I mean, yeah. I think these things, they go so fast now. Like I bet a week from now, no one's gonna give it. Doesn't feel like there could like some country could drop a nuke somewhere, and like a week and a half later, everyone would be like, so anyways, the Open is coming up.
I wonder if this could happen during football season.
Which part?
Like, I guess I'm speaking like about like Pizzola, for example. Like, I don't know that Pizzola would have the time or have been doing this during football season. A lot of these other pro gamblers, like, they would not have dived into the crazy, defended themselves versus the crazy. They'd just be too busy, make fun of it or not, but like with football season to deal with any of it.
It probably depends on Tommy G's drug dealer's inventory. If he has a lot, like, and lying around, the prices are low, maybe those poker games fire up a little more frequently.
And as many people have said, if nothing else, they should reimburse Tommy back for those 2 bags of Coke. Because, like, it's nothing worse than doing 2 8 balls of Coke and, like, your trip being ruined.
What is Tommy G doing right now? Because I saw him launch some like sports betting thing. Because I once saw like a highlight video that involves Siege and like a round table and them like talking about bets they won or something. Like what is going on there?
I'm honestly not sure. I think he's just hanging out with some like sort of at the moment. I think he still has his like Tommy G bets in his Discord. So I think he's up to like the typical Tommy G stuff and a Tommy G show. But I think he has latched on to some like younger aspiring influencers.
Does he still do the like American Patriot podcast stuff?
I don't think so.
Don't think
so. Yeah, because he was so the people were asking in the chat. So he was Tommy G was like an OG DFS influencer. He was on Roto Grinders. He got popular. He had like 50,000 followers or so on Twitter, which was really big back then for DFS. And he started his own thing, his own site, Elite Guru, I think it was called. Yeah. He got into the QAnon stuff during Trump's first run.
Yes.
And started posting about that nonstop. And got his follower count to bigger than Evan Silva's. Like he had like 250,000 people. Yeah. He got banned. Started in Tommy G Returns Twitter, which is the handle he has now. The Elite Guru guys were sick of his QAnon stuff. They kicked him out of the company somehow from his own company. This is another people got to sign the contracts, right? And then I guess had some sort of mea culpa with the Q community, and now is not into it, and then kind of just went back to tout DFS sports betting tout bro. Started his own site. I think it's still going around. And this is the first I've heard of him in a little bit, like a little while. Is this poker controversy?
Yeah, since COVID, since like lizard people and that stuff, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's what most people remember him for. And I always remember it was like early COVID. It was like 2 weeks into our lockdown or whatever, and Roto Grinders hosted a like poker tournament. And they were like, we were streaming it and stuff like that. And at the end of the stream, like, and here we go to the 5 a.m. thing, Tommy G hops on the stream, like at the end of the tournament. It had to be like midnight or 1 a.m.
Yeah.
And I think I even remember bowing out myself. Tommy was probably really upset that I didn't want to continue the stream at 1 a.m. They were still just riffing late into the night on this stream. That was the last I think I saw of him.
Yeah, but he definitely had that that sports betting site going for a while after COVID. So I don't know if it's still around. But that's Tommy G's story.
There's the story. So is this Geoff? It sounds like you're like legitimately exhausted from like keeping up. That this has been like a near, I don't know, part-time job, just keeping up on all of this stuff.
This one specifically. But again, like I said, it's like chickens coming home to roost. We've been part of a show that, just gave opinions, didn't wait for all the facts, and now someone who's part of the operation is embroiled in something. I think a lot of people are excited to like spin it on to Flop and Pizzola and the Circle Back operation, which I happen to be a part of. I've pretty much kept my nose out of this one, but that's also because the story, as crazy as it sounds, is I'm not the big poker guy. The story never had me. It only had me when it got to like these crazy levels.
Do these people, because like I'll see you'll mix it up like on Twitter, like you'll be in the mix, like responding to stuff. Are you now like a figure that these guys all know and know that you're going to cover them on the podcast? Or are you still kind of on the periphery?
Yeah, I'm still pretty on the periphery. Like anyone who watches the show is familiar with me. Like I am there to like be the non like pro better perspective, as like sometimes pretentious pro betters like act like assholes or pieces of shit, or are just so deep into their world, and they don't care if you get banned even though you're a square because you made a couple of bets that got CLV, because they've got a whole literally like institutional infrastructure of burner accounts to just like jump to. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to call myself like, I think calling myself like the common man would be a little egregious and not fair either. But like, I don't think anyone's watching that show and being like, I'm just trying to give another perspective, like a rec better, a guy who bets for fun, a guy who's not afraid to make a bet on Sunday at like noon in football season, just because I'm going to watch football for 8 hours. Yeah, so I don't take that like I'm not involved in their world of like huge pro betting and syndicates.
Yeah.
That's kind of the funny thing about that poker game too. It was not that much money. So like, okay, Tommy G lost 30 grand, but over thousands of hands. They weren't playing super high stakes. It seems like a real big mistake for them to do this to a whale. Like logically to me, like if they're pro players and you got a whale sitting there who's willing to play for you, like why would you cheat? Just play your game. I also think it's nuanced to normie people who don't know a lot about poker, where the idea of like there's this whale sitting at our table, I'm not gonna really play hard against these other guys who are good, is pretty common in poker world, online and in real life for decades. Now a normie might go like, that's not how you're supposed to play, right? You're supposed to play as hard as you can versus every opponent at the table. But poker in the 2000s is really, you sit at a table, you hope there's some bad players there, and then you focus on why they're bad, and you all split up their money. That was really what poker was in the mid 2000s. And so like a normie might be like, you guys are scumbags, but like poker players, like that's how poker is played. He's not, he could win the money. Tommy G theoretically could win the money. And so like for normal, if you scale that up, then it gets into sketchy land. Are they actually soft playing each other? If they're soft playing each other knowingly, then yeah, that crosses the line. If they're soft playing each other without communicating in any way whatsoever, which means they're just not playing against each other, like this Jack situation. Yeah. I mean, if he folded if they're playing like four-handed or something, like you're never folding jacks. You're very rarely folding jacks. But if Tommy G has folded out and then the two other pros or something are 3-bet before it even gets to you, you know, or maybe you opened it and it's 4-bet back to you or something like that. I can kind of see that. And you're just like, I'm just here for Tommy G's. And I mean, but that is skeptical. And I'm not saying they're not cheating. I mean, I don't know the details of it. I'm just saying there's like a lot of nuance in this whale pro dynamic that if you don't know a lot about poker, everything sounds like cheating probably to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's cool that you guys are doing that show, because I think the big takeaway for me is people want ways to interact with their hobbies beyond just the hobby itself, right? You know, people want to play DFS. They want to talk about DFS gossip. Who's the tout that just changed sites or whatever, right? People want a sports bet. They also want to talk about two scammers who hate each other that might box, you know, like people want avenues for that stuff. So I like that you guys spun up a podcast and you can do some of the heavy lifting and deep research in the sports betting community that Brian and I were not going to ever do around here. So thank you for your service, Geoff.
No problem. Like I said, it's just a place where like I could not speak to somebody about the elf spaces like in my real life. Like, so
Yeah.
it's like an outlet, right? Almost of like people to talk to. And I feel like a lot of people, like I said at the top, we're perpetually online. So there's these things that we want to talk about that are interesting to us, but they are like, you're almost embarrassed and you know your friends would have nothing to say. There's too much backstory that you can't even begin to start the conversations about them. I mean, I did have friends reach out to me like in the Mathis crypto scandal, like that one got like a lot of normie interest. Like, what's up with this one? This one seems so much fun. But that's what the show was, because us perpetually online gambling degens who can't take this stuff to our real world, we had to then make an online outlet for it.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, there you go, Geoff. I have a feeling that this isn't the last best ball or DFS/sports betting controversy. So if we need you to fill us in, are you amenable to continue to be our correspondent here?
Yeah, sure. Anytime. It could get crazier because, like you alluded to, I didn't think of it till we were on, but like, there's no way this would happen in football season. The dog days of summer might make this thing get crazier. It really might.
Yes. My alter ego here, Pete Overbet. Can we pre-book Geoff for a future episode? That's what I just did. We're keeping him on retainer.
Yeah. Before we go really quick, the Tommy G thing too, that if Tommy G wants to turn the knobs and do his Tommy G thing and blow it out of proportion, there's no one who's better at doing that than Tommy G. And I was just thinking this whole time, like, how is his ego not being totally hurt? Tommy G, I'm assuming, has a bit of an ego, even if he doesn't think he's the greatest poker player. And just everyone in the world calling him a whale has got to piss him off. Right?
The thing of poker, he accepts it.
Go, I'm not a whale. They're cheating, and I'm going nuclear.
He also, here's the thing that makes it crazier. When the cheating stuff first happened, and he didn't have hand history or evidence of someone folding jacks, he kind of acknowledged, like, as with anyone, like the range of outcomes when you enter an online poker game from the spaces is that something shady could be happening here. It's almost like, who gives a shit if you got ripped off? You had to know that was definitely in play when you signed up. But Tommy literally said, now I'm paraphrasing, is like, I knew something could be up, but I like wanted to come back here and say like, I beat them. Like, you know, he wanted to like come back with a story of like being ganged up on and winning the table.
Yeah.
He said that, like, that was, even though he knew something was up, like that was important to him in his binge of cocaine and card playing. So he could have left. And he wasn't totally unaware that something is up here. He even acknowledged that. Not that anything was, but he said like he knew he was the fish and he wanted to laugh at them on the spaces the next day for the fish who won the game.
Yeah. Yeah. No sympathy for Tommy G from people. Like, come on. He's not being taken advantage of. He knows what he's doing. He's been a gambler for a long time.
Yes. And you talk about like the angle for, Tommy G, like getting that exposure, finding people to sign up for whatever, Pixar
I'm
thing
surprised.
he's doing.
He's not trying that.
Yeah. Well, he might be, quietly.
Maybe, yeah. But like I'm saying, like he could go nuclear, blow it up the way Tommy G does, make it a real big thing, get some subs for himself, and then push this story to next week. It's possible.
Do you know what I want to hear now after talking about this? I want to listen to a podcast with Elf and Tommy G, where Tommy G teaches Elf the ropes about how to make it big, crash out, and how to pick yourself up from the bootstraps after crashing out and remaking yourself again with a second act. That would be a content I would listen to. I just dropped in the chat a link to the Circles Off podcast. I know you guys do that on YouTube as well. I just added it to my pod feed, and look at that, presented by Underdog. Look at Underdog getting in the business of all of this sports betting gossip. All right, Brian, anything else for you to plug with In-Game Syndicate?
No, I don't think so. Oh yeah, we started the golf show with Davis.
Nice.
We're gonna try to do Wednesdays, so there'll be new Run the Sims stuff coming out.
And also, I think we mentioned this last week. I mentioned on Best Ball Breakfast, the Draft Caddy is now available in the Chrome store. There was someone asking me about it in the Deposit Kingdom. You can download the extension for free. You'll just need an In-Game Syndicate Draft Caddy account to actually log in and access the features. But gone are the days where you have to load an unpacked, CSV and do the manual stuff. Google is going to take care of it.
You just search Draft Caddy in Chrome store, you'll find it. There is some free stuff on if you don't want to pay.
Okay.
That salary cap calculator, it used to be like on DFS, like if you build a lineup, it shows you how much money you spent. That'll work free on there.
Gotcha.
Maybe there's some other things too.
There you go. Poke around and see what you can get for free. Otherwise, get a sub. Thanks again to Geoff. If you guys are in, where's the live show? Is it Toronto?
Yeah, Toronto. It is at the Rec Room on Saturday. There's still a couple tickets available.
Okay.
It might just be standing room, but check Mayo's feed. I'm sure he'll be plugging that. Myself, Pat Mayo, Cam Stewart, Rob Pizzola will be there if you want to ask him about this. But yeah, I'm not totally sure what to expect other than it should be a pretty good time and probably will never happen again. So we'll call it once in a lifetime.
As for me, I'm headed over to Ship Chasing here in about 20 minutes for a show. We have Theo Greminger from Fantasy Points on. And otherwise, have a great rest of your week. We'll see you guys next time on LOLz. Peace.